I'm going to give you guys some NBA content on this episode today. And today we're going to get into Ja Morant and why I believe the Memphis Grizzlies have a major problem on their hands with Ja Morant. But before we get started, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and tell a friend, and tell a friend, and tell a friend to support my channel.
Biggest the Super Bowl.
For those of y'all that haven't been paying attention with what's been going on in the NBA over the past week and a half to 2 weeks or so, things have not been going well for Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies are 4-8, and Ja Morant specifically has not been good. And he is having just a nightmarish start to the season. The guy is averaging a career low of 19 points a game. He's averaging 7 assists. He's shooting 35% from the field in his first 11 games. Let me repeat that. Ja Morant is shooting 35% from the field in his first 11 games. He's shooting 19% from three. His true shooting percentage is the second lowest amongst the NBA players that's played over 30 minutes a game. To only Derek White. Ja Morant, his true shooting is at 47%. And look, I know the people watching this probably don't know what true shooting percentages is, and I don't blame y'all, but I'll just say this regarding the true shooting percentage stat. If you're shooting 47% on true shooting, that is abysmal. It's abysmal if you're shooting that low. Usually the league average for true shooting is like around 56, 57. That's somewhere in the mid 50s. That's usually around average. So 47% on true shooting is it's terrible. And again, things have not been going well for Ja Morant. And Ja Morant has had some problems, with his coach, Thomas Isalu. I think that's his name. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but Thomas Isalu. And, look, the Laker game kind of stood out to me about a week and a half ago. The Grizzlies played the Lakers, and reportedly things got a little heated in the locker room. And then after that, and then during the game, you kind of saw Ja Morant's effort kind of lapse in lane. He wasn't doing anything off the ball. He was passing up shots. He wasn't defending. He wasn't giving much effort. And then the Grizzlies end up losing the game to the Lakers. And then after the game, you saw Ja Morant kind of talk to some reporters, and he kind of took a little shot at his coach, talking about how, it's the coach's fault, or coach might not, if it was a coach's decision, he probably wouldn't want me to play, right? And so there's a little bit of that going on. And reportedly, it seems like the issue that Ja Morant has with Thomas Isalu is the coach's rotations, right? Like he's getting subbed out too early, and he's not allowed to get in a rhythm. And Ja Morant is like, he's fighting about the coach about it, and the coach is like, we're going to do things my way or the highway. And Ja Morant ain't happy about it. And it's kind of where it's at, right? Like, it seems like Ja Morant he's not happy with some of the coach's rotations and decisions, and Thomas Isalu's like, hey, I don't care. I'm gonna do whatever I want to do because I'm in charge. And it seems like Ja Morant isn't happy about that. But here's the thing with Ja Morant. This isn't the first time he's kind of had an issue with a coach. He had his issues with the last coach he had. And I'm here to tell you. And look, I'm an Atlanta Hawks fan. And I'm a Trae Young fan. And I'm just gonna put this out there. If Trae Young was having some of these issues that Ja Morant is having off the court with his coach and what he's been producing on the floor this season. If Trae Young was doing this, the whole world would be at Trae Young's neck, okay? The people will be saying, Trae Young is not a winner. Trae Young isn't this. You can't win with Trae Young. He's a coach killer. The people will be saying all kinds of stuff about Trae Young. If Trae Young was doing some of this stuff that Ja Morant has been doing this in this early portion of the season. And look, man, if Trae Young was doing some of this that Ja Morant was doing, that Ja Morant's been doing, criticizing his coach, not putting forth real effort on offense and defense, not being productive, people would be way out on Trae if Trae was doing what Ja Morant was doing. Make no mistake about it. And heck, even maybe even Hawk fans might have been all over Trae if Trae was doing the stuff that Ja Morant's been doing this season. And so I say that to say, regarding Ja Morant, that it's not good. I mean, it's really Ja Morant's reputation on the court compared to where he was at 2 to 3 years ago. It's pretty startling. It really is, man. And it's quite sad to witness in real time. When you look at what Ja Morant has been producing out on the floor and some of the issues he's had off the court. And that's not even mentioning, the gun situation that he had a couple of years ago, right? That's not even mentioning that stuff and some of the other immature things that he's been able to get away with. And so it's not good for Ja Morant at all. It really isn't. And I think the reality for Ja Morant, we talk about the things that he's been doing off the court. I think like I said earlier, man, the bigger problem with Ja Morant, at least in my eye, is I don't know if he's good anymore. Like he's not playing well. And quite frankly, he hasn't played well in quite some time. Like, I don't think he had a great year last season. If you're going to be honest about it. And you look at how he's been producing this season, it's worse. Like, I'm looking at Ja Morant on the court, and he's gotten worse as a basketball player. He's never been the greatest shooter. We all know he's been a subpar 3-point shooter. But you look at his finishing numbers, they've declined rapidly over the past few years. I'm not seeing him finish at the rim the way that he used to. He's not a good jump shooter. He's never been much of a defender. And with Ja Morant, when you have a guy that's so predicated on athleticism, the way that Ja Morant is, to see him decline like this is really, 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 really concerning. It really is. And, I was watching that game against the New York Knicks last night, and it was bad. Ja Morant had 7 turnovers in 14 minutes in that first half against the New York Knicks. It was truly horrific. He was trying to throw left-handed passes. They would get intercepted. He was trying to throw passes to his teammates, and they would go out of bounds. And it would go in the crowd. It was awful, man. It really is. And defensively, he's missing assignments. He's late rotating. He's missing box outs. All of it was bad with Ja Morant. When you look at how he performed against the Knicks the other night, Ja Morant finished the game with 16 points, 10 assists, which is, you look at that on paper, you're like, it's decent. But he had 8 turnovers. He shot 4 for 14 from the field and 2 assists from 3. And you look at how Ja Morant's been playing over his last 5 games. This is going to be startling for people to witness, but Ja Morant over his past 5 games has more turnovers than made baskets. That's right. Ja Morant has more turnovers, 29, than made baskets, 25. 29 turnovers to 25 made baskets for Ja Morant over his past 5 games. I mean, this is horrific stuff. In 9 of his 11 games, Ja Morant has shot 36% or less from the field in 9 of his first 11 games. I mean, what is going on? I mean, and for me, man, I'm looking at Ja Morant right now, and it just I'm afraid that we're gonna have to ask this question with Ja, but like, is he a good basketball player right now? Is Ja Morant a good basketball player? Because the way he's been playing for the Grizzlies this season, he looks like a shell of himself right now. And this is a Ja Morant that the Memphis Grizzlies, heading into this offseason, they've kind of been banking on. Banking on him kind of re-upping his value. They moved on from Desmond Bane. Obviously, they moved him to Orlando, which, I thought it was a pretty shrewd trade for the Grizzlies. They got back some picks. They got 4 first-round picks. They got a pick They got a pick from the Suns in this year's draft, and so it's a nice little business for them. But the reality for the Grizzlies is they were hoping for Ja Morant to be Ja Morant, to be the all-star, borderline all-NBA level player that we all have always thought himself of being. And that just has not been the case at all for the Grizzlies and Ja Morant. Ja Morant has been bad. He's been brutal. And at this point in time, it's hard for the Grizzlies and for Grizzly fans to say, we got to trade Ja Morant. Maybe it's the coach's fault, right? Maybe it's the coach's fault. Maybe if the Grizzlies fire Thomas Isolo because Thomas Isolo and Ja Morant aren't seeing eye to eye, maybe we get a new coach. Ja Morant will look like Ja Morant again. And maybe the reason Ja Morant is playing poorly is because he hates his coach. Like, that might be the narrative. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying Thomas Isolo is the second coming of Greg Popovich, so I'm not going to go there. I'm not saying that, but at some point, man, we got, if you're Ja Morant, like, sometimes you just got to wonder, like, is this guy declining? Is this game declining right before our very eyes? Because look, man, and I'm going to go back to Trae Young for a minute, but look, man, earlier in Trae Young's career, Trae Young and Lloyd Pierce did not get along. Trae Young and Lloyd Pierce did not get along. But you know what? It didn't stop Trae Young from producing out there on the court, man. Like, it didn't stop Trae Young for putting up numbers and putting up 25 and 10 and making all-star teams. And I know that was early in his career, but like, I don't know if I buy into the theory that just because you hate your coach, that all of a sudden you I'm gonna not put forth my best effort out there on the court. And I don't know, man. Like, I look at Ja Morant and I just don't know if he's good anymore. Like, I'm looking at his production and it's on the downward spiral. Like, I'm looking at Ja Morant out there on the court, man, and I'm getting like post knee injury Derrick Rose Chicago Bulls vibes right now. Like, I'm looking at Ja Morant and I'm like, this is what Derrick Rose, after he had these knee issues, looked like for the Bulls. And we all know what happened a few years later. The Bulls ended up moving on from Derrick Rose and they had to start over. And I'm looking at what Ja Morant is looking like for the Grizzlies. Like, I kind of feel like if this is the Ja Morant that we're going to see moving forward, I don't see how the Grizzlies don't just cut their losses or something with Ja Morant and just look at him and just think like, this is not a guy that's going to be a part of our long-term future. And it's hard, man. And here's kind of the problem I think the Memphis Grizzlies are gonna have. If they want to conclude that Ja Morant is not going to be part of our long-term vision, the problem is who's going to want Ja? If Ja Morant is going to be a guy that's going to average 19 points and 7 assists, and he's going to shoot 35% from the field, and he's going to have a true shooting of below 50, and he's just going to be incredibly inefficient, who in the NBA is going to want Ja Morant? Because I have a hard time seeing which team is going to be like, you know what, we'll take a chance on Ja Morant, despite the fact that he's been terrible and he's shooting poorly, like incredibly poorly from the field. We'll take a chance on him. I don't see that team out there. I have a hard time. I know Minnesota has become a little bit of a popular Ja Morant target, but I don't know, man. If I'm Minnesota, I'm looking at Ja Morant and I'm looking at him the way he's been producing this season. Why would I want him? Why would I want to take a chance on Ja Morant? Why? And the Kings have kind of been brought up. I'm Sacramento, man. Look, you never know what the Sacramento Kings they do a bunch of dumb stuff, and so maybe it would be them. But if I were the Kings, I wouldn't want Ja Morant. If I and I know I need a point guard, I wouldn't want Ja Morant. I'll wait for a better option to reveal itself. If I were the Kings, or if I were the Minnesota Timberwolves, or if I were any other team that needed a point guard, if this is the Ja Morant that I'm getting this season, I would not want any parts of him. And it's unfortunate that I'm saying this about Ja Morant this season, because Ja Morant just flat out has been atrocious out there on the court. He's been atrocious, man. There's just no way around it. And there were times where Trae Young and Ja Morant was a legit debate, and there were times where many people would probably take Ja over Trae Young. Right now, even acknowledging that, look, Trae Young, he's been out for, he's going to be out for at least until around early December with this knee issue, and we'll see how Trae Young recovers from that. But if you're asking me who I would take moving forward between Ja Morant and Trae Young, to me, and I'm not even saying it just because I'm a Hawk fan, I'm saying this because I'm just looking at what I was saying with my eyes. And based off of what I've seen over the last year, it would be Trae Young times a million over Ja Morant. If you're telling me who I would take as my point guard moving forward, it's not even a discussion. I mean, Ja Morant is terrible right now, man. He has been struggling, and the reality for the Grizzlies is, even if they wanted to move off of Ja Morant, you look at his contract situation. He's owed $39 million this season. Next season, he's going to be owed $42 million. And then the following season, which is the 2027, 2028 season, that season, he's going to be making $44 million. It's a lot of money for a guy who's not producing at a high clip right now. And so even if the Grizzlies were we'll move off of Ja, again, who's going to want him? There's a world that exists that the Grizzlies might very well be stuck with Ja Morant on their team, even if they wanted to move off of him, which, look, at this point, the way Ja Morant has been looking, they probably want to move off of him right now. And they'll probably come to the realization that, you know what, man, we can't move off of him because nobody in the league wants him. And that's a problem, man. And this is why the Memphis Grizzlies have a Ja Morant problem, man. The Grizzlies have a Ja Morant problem right now. And there's just no shaking it, man. And for Grizzlies fans, it's tough. If I were a Grizzlies fan, I'll be pissed off, man, looking at this whole situation. With Ja Morant not getting along with his coach, and Ja Morant not producing on the court, and just seeing his numbers dwindle down the way it's been dwindling down. I mean, every game, it feels like it's just getting worse for Ja Morant right now, man. Every game. And it's rough, man. It's really rough for Ja Morant right now. And for the Grizzlies, look, they've had injuries. You know, Zach Edey's been out. Scottie Pippen Jr., he's been out. Ty Jerome, he's been out. Brandon Clark's been out. And so they've been out some guys in their defense. But man, Ja Morant's got to be better than this, man. And I just don't know if he's capable of it anymore at this point. Like he looks like a guy that just hasn't evolved as a basketball player. He looks like a dude that just has not evolved. When I'm talking about Ja Morant, his finishing at the rim has gotten worse. His jump shooting's gotten worse. His defense has gotten worse. I'm not seeing the same athleticism. Remember 2-3 years ago, you would see Ja Morant just skip and jump out there on the court like he was happy, and just rap from time to time and just joke around out there on the court and smile. Remember that? I'm not seeing that. No, I'm not seeing that from Ja Morant this year, man. I'm not. I'm not seeing that spunk, that energy, that I want this. I'm not seeing it from Ja Morant this year. And I haven't really seen it in the past 2 years. And I don't know, man. I don't know. And like I said, man, I'm very concerned with Ja Morant right now. I'm really am concerned with what I've seen out of Ja Morant. And it's incredibly alarming and disappointing as a basketball fan that Ja Morant has looked this bad for the Grizzlies. And it's alarming to me that we've seen Ja Morant kind of get into it with another coach like Thomas Isalou. And look, maybe it might come down to the fact that the Grizzlies might have to fire Thomas Isalou and pick another coach and see how things go on from there. It might get to that point. And maybe it's likely it does get to that point. Because again, the Grizzlies are 4-8. Right now they're in 11th place in the Western Conference. And so it's not looking good for the Grizzlies at all, man. It really isn't. And like I said, man, the Memphis Grizzlies have a Ja Morant problem right now. And I don't know a way out of this mess that Ja Morant and the Grizzlies have. Like I don't know, man. But this isn't good.